My parents said, we don't take sides, although they hosted my ex-wife and brother for supper on Sunday after they broke up my marriage. Okay, I don't choose sides either. They took a side right away after the mortgage was due. Hey everyone. I 34 male need to get this whole thing off my chest. This is going to take a while, but I swear it's worth it. This whole thing has been bothering me for months. Writing it down is the only way I can deal with what occurred with my family, to be honest. So, here's the plan. I have a sibling that is younger than myself. Let's name him Derek. We were pretty close when we were kids, and now he's 31. We weren't best buddies or anything, but we got along. We played video games together, attended each other's high school activities. Things that brothers do. Our parents, who are now in their early 60s, always made a huge deal out of treating us all the same. It was important that everything was fair. Same amount of money for birthdays, Christmas, and college. You get the point. I got married to Madison, my ex-wife, when I was 28. I really thought she was the one because we had been dating since college. She was clever, humorous, and driven, and her laugh was so contagious that it could light up a room. We had a plan for our whole lives. You know, the full package that you're supposed to want. A career, a house in the suburbs, 2 kids, and a dog. This tech business in downtown Madison hired her to work in marketing. She worked long hours and went to a lot of networking events, team-building exercises, and other things that are common in startup culture. She enjoyed it and made good money. She said she was making something real and important. As a civil engineer, I have solid job and good compensation, but nothing showy. I made plans for bridges and roads. Important work, but hardly the kind of stuff that gets people excited at parties. About 4 years ago, we acquired a wonderful 3-bedroom house in an excellent area. It wasn't luxurious, but it had a 2-car garage, a backyard, and decent schools close for when we had kids. It wasn't very big, but it was ours. We chose the paint colors together, fought over where to put the furniture, and had our first Thanksgiving there, which is what young married couples do. My parents live at the house where I grew up, which is around 20 minutes away. The same split-level ranch they bought when I was 2 years old. They are both now retired. Dad had a hardware store, while Mom worked as a school secretary for 30 years. Good folks with a strong middle-class upbringing. They did everything right. Worked hard, saved money, and so on. Or at least I thought they were nice. Felt they done everything perfectly. They took Sunday dinners very seriously as a custom. Every week, everyone in the family was scheduled to be there at 5 o'clock. Mom would make fried chicken, pot roast, or lasagna. We'd gather around the enormous oak dining table they acquired at an estate auction in the 1980s and eat, converse, and pretend we were a happy, functional family. You know, it was their thing to keep the family together no matter what. Derek never truly got used to things. He went from job to job like they were trampolines. Worked as a bank teller at first. They dismissed me because I was late too many times. Tried to sell insurance, but hated it. Stopped after 4 months. I went back to school for graphic design but dropped out halfway through. Worked at a gym for a while, then a call center, and then did some freelance web programming that didn't go anywhere. He always had a new plan or business idea that was sure to make him rich this time. It never quite worked out. But he's a kind guy. I'll agree with him on that. He always knew how to talk his way into things. He could talk his way out of problems. If he worked hard enough, he could make you believe that black was white. When he got into money problems, which happened more often than I'd care to admit, our parents would help him out. Rent money here, car payment there, and a little loan to get this firm off the ground. I didn't say anything since that's what family does. Right? You help one another. You don't keep track of the score. I didn't see the problem coming, even though it started around 2 years ago. How could I? When you glance the other way, you don't see a freight train coming. Madison began to work even more hours. There were more business travels to conferences in other cities, more late-night calls she had to take in another room, and more work sessions on the weekends at coffee shops. I thought it was just that her job was getting harder. The startup was growing quickly, getting new clients and moving into new markets. She was going to be promoted to senior marketing director. It seemed reasonable that she would be busy, harried, and preoccupied. Derek also came to our house more often. He came by when I was at work and said he was in the area and wanted to say hey to Madison. He was just being kind and being a good brother-in-law. She said he was assisting her with some computer stuff for work, like optimizing their website or something, because he had done some coding in the past. I thought it was great that they were getting along so well. Family harmony, right? There were so many warning signs that I missed. How Madison's phone was constantly facing down on the table. How she began going to the gym at odd times, like 10 p.m. The new underwear I found in her drawer that she never wore when I was around. The tags were still on. Derek cancelled arrangements with me at the last minute but posted Instagram stories from coffee places near our house. Madison smelling different when she came home from her late work sessions. She was wearing perfume that she typically only used on special occasions. But you know what it's like to trust someone entirely. You don't want to see what's right in front of you. You always have an excuse. You tell yourself that you're being paranoid, that you've watched too many true crime shows, and that not everyone who works late is cheating. The truth came out 6 months ago in the most obvious way possible. I came home early from a work site because we finished the structural assessment ahead of schedule. I saw Derek's beat-up Honda Civic in our driveway, which was strange because he had told me earlier that day that he had a job interview across town. The front door was open. Their clothing were making a path up the stairs. We found them in our bedroom. The bedroom we sleep in. The one I had spent 3 weekends painting the exact shade of blue-gray that Madison had been infatuated with on Pinterest. I don't recall anything about the first several minutes. There was a lot of yelling. Madison was crying and reaching for the sheets while Derek tried to put on his pants and talk about how it had just happened, how they hadn't meant for it to go this far, how they had been fighting their feelings for months, and all the other things people say when they get caught doing something they shouldn't have. I told both of them to go. I told Derek to leave my house and my life. I told Madison that I wanted a divorce. That I would have her things ready to go by the end of the week. I didn't care if she stayed at a hotel, with her mom, or with Derek. She attempted to get me to calm down, talk it over, go to therapy with her, and work things out like there was anything to work out after I saw her in bed with my brother. I called my parents that night when I had stopped shaking, tossed away the bedding and pillows, and taken a shower so hot it left marks on my skin. I needed someone to talk to. Someone who would be on my side and tell me I wasn't insane for being so sad. I drove to their place at about 9 o'clock. Dad answered the door in his ratty old bathrobe, the one Mom keeps threatening to throw away. They put me in the living room, served me tea that I didn't drink, and I told them everything, down to the last detail. The garments on the steps, the excuses, and the look on Derek's face when I went in. And do you know what they said? We should listen to Derek's version of the tale. That should have been my first caution flag, but I was too shocked to think about it. I couldn't stop thinking about the picture of my wife and brother together. I thought they were just trying to get a handle on the whole thing before doing anything. That's what parents do, right? Stay calm in a crisis and acquire all the facts. It seems that Derek also went over there the next day. He spent 2 hours telling them his side of the story, which I'm sure was full of excuses, manipulation, and illogical reasoning. Afterward, my parents phoned me and said they needed some time to think about things. They told me not to do anything stupid and to consider carefully before I made any significant choices. It is too late for that. That morning, I had already called a lawyer named Martin. He was a family lawyer who I had worked with on some city initiatives. He had cleared his calendar after seeing my face. That afternoon, they filed for divorce. We started keeping our money separate, changing our passwords, and writing everything down. Madison had been the one who wanted to keep everything together. It showed trust and working together, they said. I suppose she appreciated being able to get into my accounts as she was making plans to leave. The divorce was a catastrophe. Very messy. Madison wanted the house, part of my retirement savings, and alimony, even though she made almost as much money as I did. Said she had given up on advancing her career to help me with my work, which was total nonsense. But her lawyer was skilled at making up lies. But my lawyer was superior. Thank God we had a prenup. My dad had actually insisted on this, which is funny. He said it was merely good business, even if he liked Madison at the time. I think he was accurate about that one thing. This is when my parents truly started to exhibit who they were. About a month after things fell apart, when I had moved out of the house and into a sad one-bedroom apartment across town and started sleeping more than 3 hours a night again, I got asked to Sunday dinner like usual. A text from Mom. 5 p.m. dinner. See you then. I love you. I thought it would be wonderful to leave my apartment, which smelled like old takeout and failure. Maybe I should tell my parents about all that was going on with the lawyers. Instead of another frozen pizza, make some supper at home. For a few hours, feel normal. I got to their house right at 5 o'clock, stepped in through the back door like I always do, and guess who was sitting at the dining table? Madison and Derek were seated next to each other and laughing about something with my mom in the kitchen. They seemed like old friends who were catching up. I was perfectly still in the doorway. I couldn't move, talk, or understand what I was witnessing. My dad came over and put his hand on my shoulder like he used to do when I was upset. He said, "We don't take sides in our family. Everyone deserves a place at our table." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw my dad, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who came to all my baseball games, and who helped me move into my first apartment. I didn't recognize him. "Are you serious right now? Derek is our son, too," Mom exclaimed as she came out of the kitchen with her floury oven mitts still on. "And Madison was a member of this family for 6 years. We can't just leave folks out. That's not how families act." I stated they were sleeping together, and my voice sounded strange and far away in my house, in my bed for months. Dad sighed as if I was being a pain about something small. "We realize that you're hurt, but Derek said that you and Madison had been drifting away for a long and that you were busy with business. These things do happen. People do things wrong. As a family, we need to go forward and grow apart." That is what Derek told them. Not that he had been betraying his brother on purpose for a long time. Not that Madison had been lying to me about preparing a future with someone else. We had just started drifting apart. And these things do happen. Madison had the nerve to offer me this sorrowful smile and look of sympathy. "I'm pleased we can all act like adults about this. I believe it's crucial for us to be polite." I went. Didn't eat. Didn't sit down. Not a word more. I immediately walked out the door and got in my car and drove away. I ended up in a bar on the other side of town that I'd never been to before. That night, my mom sent me around 50 SMS claiming I was acting like a child and needed to learn to forgive. She said that harboring grudges would only damage me, that Derek and Madison were sorry, and that everyone deserved a second opportunity. The Sunday dinners continued. Every single week, Derek and Madison would be there, sitting at that table, eating my mom's cooking, probably talking about how unreasonable I was being. My parents would invite me and every week I declined. They started getting annoyed with me, said I was holding a grudge, that I was being petty, that family is supposed to forgive each other no matter what. My brother who betrayed me in the worst way possible, my ex-wife who cheated on me for months, and my parents expected me to just sit at a table and pass them the mashed potatoes like nothing had happened, like I hadn't walked in on them, destroying my entire life. Here's something I haven't mentioned yet. Something that becomes important later. About 5 years ago, my parents almost lost their house. Dad had made some bad investments trying to play the stock market with some buddies from the hardware store. Lost about $40,000 in some tech startup that went belly up. They got behind on their mortgage. Like really behind. We're talking foreclosure notices, lawyers calling, the whole nightmare scenario. I helped them. Used a big chunk of my savings, about $30,000, to catch up their payments and get them out of default. Then to make sure they'd never be in that position again, I refinanced their mortgage in my name. Better credit score, better interest rate, the works. Cut their monthly payment by almost $400. They made the monthly payments to me and I paid the bank. It was supposed to protect them, help them retire comfortably. The house is in their name, but the mortgage is in mine. Legally, I'm responsible for it. If they don't pay, it hits my credit. If they default, I'm on the hook. For 5 years. They never missed a payment. Things were good. They thanked me every month when they handed over the check. Said I was such a good son. So responsible that they didn't know what they'd do without me. I never thought twice about it. They were my parents. You help your parents. But after 3 months of Sunday dinners with Derek and Madison, after 3 months of my parents telling me I needed to get over it, after 3 months of being told I was the problem for not wanting to play happy family with the two people who destroyed my marriage, something in me shifted. I was sitting in my apartment one Sunday, the same time the family dinner would be happening. I could picture it perfectly. Mom bringing out the pot roast. Dad carving it at the head of the table. Derek and Madison sitting there, probably holding hands under the table, probably relieved that I wasn't there to ruin the mood with my negativity. And I thought, if they don't take sides, then neither do I. I pulled up my bank account on my laptop, looked at that mortgage payment that came out like clockwork on the first of every month. $1,200. Had been paying it for 5 years without fail. I drafted an email, read it over 3 times, made sure it was professional and clear. Dear Mom and Dad, due to recent changes in my financial situation, I will no longer be able to cover the mortgage payments on your property. Your first payment will be due on the 1st of next month. The amount is $1,247.83. Please make arrangements accordingly. I've attached the mortgage company's contact information and account number for your reference. I stared at that email for about 20 minutes before I hit send. My finger hovered over the button. This was it. This was the nuclear option. Once I sent this, there was no taking it back. I hit send. My phone started ringing within 5 minutes. Mom's name on the screen. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Her voice was panicked, shaking. What are you talking about? What financial changes? This doesn't make any sense. Call us back right now. We need to talk about this. I didn't call back. Instead, I sent a follow-up email with copies of the original loan documents showing they were the homeowners, the mortgage statement, and the bank's contact information. Everything they needed to set up their own payment plan. They had 25 days to make arrangements. The calls kept coming. 23 missed calls that first night. Dad left a voicemail saying this was unacceptable, that we had an agreement, that I couldn't just change the terms like this. Another from Mom crying, asking how I could do this to them. How could I be so cruel? Derek even called telling me I was being manipulative and using money to punish people, that I was showing my true colors. That last one made me laugh. Derek calling me manipulative. Derek, who'd been sleeping with my wife while pretending to be my brother. The irony was almost funny. I finally answered on day 3. My mom was crying before she even said hello. How could you do this to us? This is our home. We've lived here for 32 years. You're right, I said calmly, surprised by how steady my voice was. It is your home, and you should be the ones paying for it. We can't afford these payments. You know that. That's why you took over the mortgage in the first place. Then you should probably cut back on some expenses. Maybe stop buying dinner for 6 people every Sunday. That's got to add up. Pot roast isn't cheap. Silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing. This is about Derek and Madison, isn't it? Dad had gotten on the line, voice tight with anger. This is about me not subsidizing people who don't respect me. You said you don't take sides. Great. I don't take sides either, which means I'm not taking your side when it comes to paying your bills. That's completely different. Is it? Because it seems pretty similar to me. You made a choice to keep hosting them, to keep welcoming them into your home, to keep telling me I'm wrong for being hurt, to tell me I'm being petty and immature for not wanting to sit across from the people who betrayed me. Those were your choices. This is mine. Mom started crying harder. You're going to make us lose our house. We'll be out on the street. No, you're going to lose your house if you don't figure out how to make the payments. I'm just not going to prevent it anymore. There's a difference. We're your parents. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. And Derek is your son and Madison was your daughter-in-law for 6 years. Apparently, those relationships are sacred and worth protecting no matter what they do. So, I'm sure your relationship with Derek is worth him helping out with the mortgage, right? He can chip in. He's been living rent-free with his new girlfriend, Madison, so he should have some money saved up. I could hear them both trying to talk over each other, voices rising, but I just hung up. The next Sunday, I didn't get an invitation to dinner. In fact, I didn't hear from my parents at all for 4 days. When my mom finally called, her voice was cold. Professional almost. Derek says he can't help with the house payments. He's been struggling financially between jobs again. That's unfortunate. Madison said you got the house in the divorce, so she can't help either. All her money is tied up in legal fees. Sounds like you're in a tough spot then. How can you be so cruel? We raised you. We gave you everything. We sacrificed for you. You gave me everything equally with Derek. Remember, you always made sure of that. Same college fund, same birthday presents, same everything. So, I'm sure he'll step up equally now. That's only fair, right? She hung up on me. 2 weeks before their payment was due, my dad called. No mom in the background, no crying, just him. And he sounded tired. What's it going to take? He asked quietly. What do you mean for you to keep paying the mortgage? What do you want? Money? An apology? What? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I want you to choose. Choose what? Derek and Madison or me. You don't get both. You said you don't take sides. But Dad, you did take a side. You took their side the moment you invited them to your house and expected me to be okay with it. The moment you told me to get over it. The moment you said Derek's excuses were good enough. He's my son. So am I. But you decided his comfort was more important than my pain. You decided having them at your table was more important than having me. So now you get to decide if their company is worth your house. Long silence. I could hear him breathing. Hear the TV in the background. That's not fair. Neither was walking into my parents' house and seeing my ex-wife and my brother laughing together like they didn't blow up my entire life. But you know what? Life isn't fair, Dad. You taught me that. Remember when I didn't make varsity baseball sophomore year and you said life isn't fair? You just have to work harder. When I didn't get the scholarship I wanted and you said sometimes things don't work out the way we plan. This is different. Yeah, it is. Because I'm not asking you to work harder. I'm asking you to make a choice. The same choice you've been asking me to accept for months. You chose to stay neutral, which meant choosing them. Now, choose if they're worth $1,200 a month. He hung up. The payment was due in 10 days when Derek showed up at my apartment. I'd just gotten home from work. Still had my work boots on. When I found him leaning against his car in the parking lot, arms crossed, trying to look tough. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't. Mom and Dad are going to lose the house because of you. Their house where we grew up, where they've lived for over 30 years. No, they're going to lose the house because they can't afford it. And they decided that maintaining a relationship with the guy who slept with my wife was more important than maintaining one with the guy who's been paying their mortgage for 5 years. Derek's face flushed red. It wasn't like that with Madison and me. You don't understand. It just happened. We didn't plan it. Things don't just happen, Derek. You made choices. Every time you came to my house, every time you texted her, every time you sat next to her at Sunday dinner and smiled at me like everything was normal. Every time you lied to my face, those were choices. You chose to do that. I'm your brother. We're supposed to forgive each other. You were my brother. Now you're just some guy who screwed my wife and expected me to get over it because we share DNA. Look, I get that you're mad, but taking it out on Mom and Dad isn't right. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just trying to keep the family together. I actually laughed at that. They did everything wrong, Derek. They told me to forgive you when you didn't even apologize. They invited you and Madison to family dinners while I was going through a divorce. They told me I was being petty for not wanting to break bread with the people who betrayed me. They chose you over and over again. So now they get to live with that choice. I can't help them with the house. I don't have that kind of money. I'm barely making rent. Then I guess you're not as valuable to them as they thought you were. Funny how that works. He got angry, then started yelling about how I was being vindictive, how I was destroying the family, how Mom was having panic attacks because of me, how this was all my fault for not being able to let things go. I just went inside and locked the door. Stood there listening to him yell for about 5 minutes before he finally left. 3 days before the payment was due, both my parents showed up at my apartment together this time. They looked like they'd aged 10 years in the last month. I let them in because honestly, I wanted to hear what they had to say. They sat on my second-hand couch, looking smaller than I remembered. Older, tired. "We'll tell Derek and Madison they can't come to Sunday dinners anymore," Mom said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "If that's what you want, if that's what it takes. It's not about what I want anymore, Mom. It's about what you chose. You chose to make them feel welcome and me feel crazy for being hurt. You chose to prioritize their feelings over mine. We were trying to keep the family together," Dad said. And he actually sounded like he believed it. "No, you were trying to avoid conflict with Derek. There's a difference. You've been avoiding conflict with Derek his whole life. Every time he screwed up, you fixed it. Every time he needed money, you gave it to him. Every time he disappointed you, you lowered your expectations instead of raising your standards. And when he screwed me over in the worst way possible, you decided that was just another thing to overlook. We love both our sons," Mom whispered. "Then you should have acted like it. You should have told Derek what he did was unforgivable. You should have supported me, not asked me to get over it. You should have chosen the son who was loyal over the son who wasn't. What do you want us to do?" Dad asked, and he sounded genuinely confused. "Tell us. We'll do it. Just tell us what you want." That's when I realized they still didn't get it. They thought this was a negotiation, that they could say the right words and everything would go back to normal and I'd go back to paying their bills and pretending nothing happened. "I want you to understand that choices have consequences. You chose Derek and Madison over me. You chose their comfort over my pain. Now you get to live with that choice. If Derek is worth more to you than me, then he should be worth enough to help you keep your house. But he can't. Then maybe you chose wrong. Maybe you bet on the wrong son. Maybe you should have thought about that before you told me I needed to forgive the people who destroyed my marriage." They left. The payment came due. They didn't make it. I didn't either. That's when things got really interesting. The mortgage company called me 3 days after the missed payment. Since my name was on the loan, I was the first point of contact. I explained the situation as calmly as I could. The homeowners would be making payments going forward. I was no longer involved in the financial arrangement. They weren't happy about it. Started talking about late fees and credit impacts. But I'd been a good customer for 5 years, perfect payment history. So they said they'd give my parents some time to work it out. I called my parents, gave them the mortgage company's direct line and the account representative's name, and told them they needed to work it out. Then I blocked their numbers for a week. Needed some space from all of it, some silence. When I unblocked them, I had 27 missed calls and about 40 texts, most from Mom, increasingly desperate. Some from Dad, angry and then pleading. 3 from Derek calling me every name in the book. Even one from Madison saying I was being cruel and vindictive. I listened to the voicemails in order. It was like hearing them go through the 5 stages of grief in real time. First, anger. How dare I do this to them? I was ungrateful. They'd raised me better than this. I was showing my true colors. They'd always known I was cold. Then bargaining. They'd make it right. They'd talk to Derek. Set boundaries. Madison wouldn't be welcome anymore. They'd do whatever I wanted. Then depression. They were going to lose everything. How could I let this happen? They'd be homeless. They'd have nowhere to go. Finally, acceptance. They'd figured out a solution. That last message was from Dad. And his voice was flat, empty. "We've worked something out with the bank. We're selling the house. Listing it this week." I sat in my car in my apartment parking lot listening to that message 3 times. Selling the house. The house I grew up in. The house where every Sunday dinner happened. The house where I'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway and had my high school graduation party in the backyard. The house that apparently meant so much to them that they were willing to blow up their relationship with me to keep filling it with Derek and Madison. I called Dad back. "You're selling? We don't have a choice. We can't afford the payments and we're already behind. The bank is willing to work with us if we list it immediately. Real estate agent comes tomorrow. Where will you go? There's a condo complex near the lake. 2 bedrooms, smaller, but manageable. The mortgage will be half what it is now, maybe less. We can afford it on retirement alone. Won't need anyone's help." That last part stung. Won't need anyone's help. Won't need my help. Good. Silence on his end long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then, "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" "No, Dad. I'm not happy. I didn't want any of this. I wanted my wife not to cheat on me. I wanted my brother not to betray me. I wanted my parents to support me. But you couldn't just do that. You couldn't just tell Derek he was wrong. You had to stay neutral. And neutral meant choosing him. So, no, I'm not happy. But I'm done being the only one who has to sacrifice. We never chose him over you. Yeah, you did. Every single Sunday, you chose him. Every time you told me to forgive him, you chose him. Every time you made excuses for what he did, you chose him. Every time you told me I was being unreasonable, you chose him. I was just supposed to accept that. Well, now you get to accept this." Mom got on the line. Her voice was hollow, defeated. "Derek hasn't spoken to us in 2 weeks. That surprised me." "What?" "After we told him we couldn't afford the house and asked if he could help, even just a little bit, he stopped taking our calls. Madison, too. We haven't seen either of them. They're not answering texts." I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sad for them. "We chose wrong," she said quietly. And I could hear her crying. "You were right. We made the incorrect choice." Hearing her say, "It didn't feel as good as I thought it would," made me feel better. "The house closes in 30 days, Dad said back on the line. "We're doing an estate sale next weekend. If there's anything you want from your childhood room, you should come get it." I went to the estate sale. Couldn't not go, really. It was surreal seeing all our family stuff laid out on tables with price tags attached. Mom's china that she'd inherited from her grandmother. The set she only used for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Dad's tool collection that he'd spent decades building. Every wrench and screwdriver organized perfectly. The dining room table where all those Sunday dinners happened. Where Derek and Madison had sat and laughed while I was falling apart. Some stranger was going to eat dinner at that table now. Some other family would make memories there. The thought made me sad in a way I didn't expect. My parents were in the garage sorting through old holiday decorations when I found them. Mom was wrapping ornaments in newspaper, moving slowly like everything hurt. "Hey," I said. "Hey," Dad replied. Mom didn't look up, just kept wrapping. "I'm sorry it came to this," I said. And I meant it. I really did. I hadn't wanted them to lose the house. I just wanted them to see what their neutrality had cost, what choosing Derek had cost. "Are we going to be okay?" Mom asked, finally looking at me. Her eyes were red. "You and us. Can we fix this?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "You hurt me really badly, and I know I hurt you, too. Maybe we can fix it eventually, but I'm not ready yet. I need time." Dad nodded slowly. "That's fair. That's more than fair. For what it's worth," Mom said, carefully, setting down an ornament. "We haven't talked to Derek since we asked him for help with the house. He said we were being manipulative, that we were using our financial problems to guilt him. Said he had his own life to worry about. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Derek, who they'd chosen over me, had abandoned them the second they needed something from him. I'm not asking you to cut him out. I said, I don't want you to have to choose anymore. But I need you to know that I can't be with him or Madison. If you want to be with me in the future, it has to be independent from your connection with them." Dad said, "He's our son." But it didn't seem as certain as it did before. I am too. 3 weeks later, they sold the house. A young family with 2 kids bought it. They said they enjoy the area and the backyard. I'm going to paint over the blue-gray bedroom and turn it into a nursery. My parents moved into a condo with 2 bedrooms near the lake. It's really great. Modern appliances that are easier to take care of. You can see the lake from the balcony. But they look smaller there, like the lower square footage made them smaller. They stopped having meals on Sundays. Said it didn't feel right without the spacious dining room and the oak table. I suppose the fact is that it didn't feel right to know that Derek and Madison weren't coming anyway. Knowing that their lack of bias had cost them everything. We have coffee every other week or so. Neutral Ground is a bistro that is midway between my house and their unit. We chat about safe things like my job, their retirement plans, the weather, and the series we're watching on Netflix. We never talk about Derek or what happened. Last week, Mom asked me about dating. She said she was frightened that Madison's actions would mean I would be alone forever. I told her that I had gone on a few dates, but nothing meaningful. That I was being careful and taking my time. She didn't push. They didn't offer to set me up with anyone. I guess that's progress. About a month ago, Derek sent me an email. He said he and Madison split up in a long, rambling message full of apologies and excuses. Wow. It turns out that relationships based on betrayal don't have strong bases. Who would have thought? He sells used vehicles at a car dealership presently. He says he's making good money. He wanted to talk to us. Get some coffee, maybe. Begin again. I haven't answered yet. I don't know if I will. Words and coffee can't heal everything. 3 months ago, the divorce was official. I got the house and kept most of my money. Madison put some furniture in her car. Last week, she tried to add me on LinkedIn. She was presumably looking for a job and attempting to make new connections. I declined. My parents gave me the money back for the home payment I missed. Sent me a check with "We're sorry" written in the memo line. I put it in the bank, but I didn't cash it for a week. I don't know why. I guess I wasn't ready to end that chapter yet. This new hype feature recently came out on YouTube. If you can't get enough of this story, hit the hype button. It tells YouTube, this video should go viral, and it keeps sending you crazier stories.